Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. Today's video does contain some pretty serious subject matter, but it also involves one of my favorite game franchises known as Yakuza. Now for anybody that doesn't know, Yakuza is a big game franchise from Sega. It's a beat 'em up. Now it's turned into a turn-based RPG. It's a whole game centered around the Yakuza and the various hijinks that the main characters get involved in, okay? If there's a way for me to succinctly put what Yakuza is about, imagine a game where you tackle serious things like human trafficking, and then immediately one of your side quests is figuring out how to goon online. That is how insane this franchise goes. It's probably the biggest love letter to Japan out there. Are you somebody that doesn't have the money to travel somewhere to Japan right now, but you really want to see the country? I think spending a few bucks on a Steam sale is probably one of the best ways for you to be a little tourist in Japan's most beautiful but dangerous wonders, okay? Just don't imagine Japan is like walking into a street fight every 5 steps. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Yakuza 3 Kiwami is supposed to be dropping, which for anybody that doesn't know, that is basically the remake of like the Yakuza 3 that dropped all the way back in 2008. Yes, we're getting pretty old for the PlayStation 3. And, part of me would be pretty excited for the game, but honestly, I'm really not. And there's actually a really disgusting controversy around it that really kind of morally makes it really bad to go to go purchase, but we're going to tackle these things a bit at a time. Now, one of the reasons why I'm not super duper into Yakuza 3 is, to give you an idea, it's a game that I really enjoy watching the story of. I really don't care so much about playing the game. It's a game that came out back in the PlayStation 3, got re-released for the PlayStation 4 with a bunch of content brought back into it. But to give you an idea, visually speaking, it's not really a crazy good-looking remake. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is Yakuza 3, right? This is a screenshot of Yakuza 3. Now, you might be like, whoa, this game looks a little bit older, Muta. Now, this is from Yakuza Kiwami 3. Now, I might be like, whoa, what in the Game Freak just happened here? Like, look at that water, boys. We're looking at some Shenmue tier water visuals right now. Look at the lighting that you're seeing in the screen right over here. It's way too colorful, way too washed out. I mean, I can't even really see the shadows. This is the one example where I'm not even joking. The original PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3 version looks substantially better or closer to the art style that I think, okay? Like, it actually, in my opinion, looks better and crisper. Now, of course, obviously, I didn't want to just source somebody else's screenshots for this. I actually did play the game myself, and surprisingly, the visuals were just not that impressive, especially comparing it to other games in the Dragon engine, which is the engine that powers, Yakuza. I feel like ever since Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, the entire franchise's visuals have slowly but surely been fucking deteriorating. Now, back when I was playing Yakuza 6, looking at the water in that game compared to this game is night and fucking day. But looking at the visuals and lighting in general, I feel like it's crazy to say, but there are older PlayStation 4 era games like Yakuza 6 that just do the visuals a lot more justice. Now, it's not really the graphics that I'm all caring about too. Obviously, the gameplay is kind of an important part, and one of the reasons why I don't care so much about Yakuza 3 is, frankly, it's just not that fun. For instance, one user kind of puts it the best way on Reddit, where they show you one of the key problems. Now, if you're not seeing it, basically every single character in the game is really good at blocking your attacks. I actually hated playing the end of this game because I felt like every single attack that I laid down, I was basically just chipping tiny bits away at health because everyone was just so good at blocking. Okay, that's like basically the game around it. Now, I might be like, but Muta, just grab them with the circle button. Yeah, tell me how well that works on bosses, okay? Come on now. Like cracking open a cold one with the boys, you can see that Yakuza Kiwami 2 looks pretty damn good for its age. Lost Judgment, damn, that looks pretty. That actually looks really good. Games like Yakuza 6 looks pretty damn good. Games like Yakuza Infinite Wealth literally came out like 2 years ago. Seen some age in the distance, but still looks a hell of a lot better, in my opinion, than Yakuza Kiwami 3. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like there was a lot more soul put into the PS2 versions of like Yakuza 2 that still don't translate that well. Anyways, this is not me just complaining about the visuals. The actual gameplay, again, was just not that exhilarating. There's some new features where I guess you got a cell phone this time that you can like mix and match different parts and get like little perks and benefits. There's some sub-stories that you can play around with. But overall, honestly, I probably would just play the original. Now, Yakuza 3 is an interesting game where, no joke, the original time this released on the PlayStation 3 back in 2008, it actually was so insanely neutered that, again, if you were an American player, and back then the Yakuza franchise had like maybe 3 players tops, you know, there were cuts like entire games like Shogi and Mahjong removed, because I guess Americans were too goddamn brain dead to play that. You know, you couldn't go on dates with hostess girls. You couldn't even manage a hostess club. A lot of gameplay ended up getting removed because I guess Americans weren't trusted with all the sexy natures of video games and using their brains, at least more than 3 synapses at a time. Now, there's other visual cutbacks that I just don't enjoy from this game. For instance, this is one of my favorite characters, Rikia from the original, from Yakuza 3, right? Now, this like guy kind of reminds me weirdly of Joe Pesci. When I saw him in the demo, I shit you not, this is the facial swap. It's so bad that gamers have found ways to mod the original into the new game, which honestly should actually just be a feature put back in. Of course, obviously, this is where things get really spooky. Now, this character is a guy called Go Hamazaki. Now, this is a beast antagonist for the original game. This is what he looks like in the remake. Now, again, it's not just his character model that should blow your mind away. It's actually the actor behind it. Now, the actor for this character is actually Teruyuki Kagawa. Now, Teruyuki Kagawa is part of a huge campaign known as #Remove Kagawa. Now, you might be like, why do the gamers want this guy removed? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that Kagawa, well, he might have been a little too hands-on non-consensually with the women. Now, I want you to understand, Sega is the kind of company that will remove people from their video games if they do actually get into a controversy. Now, back when a game they were releasing called Judgment was coming out, this is an actor known as Pierre Taki. You might know him from movies like Outrage Coda, one of my favorite little Yakuza movies, but this is an individual where, again, he was removed from Judgment. So, back in 2019, Pierre was arrested on drug possession for cocaine, which, you know, you might consider, oh, it's pretty common for actors. Well, in Japan, doing drugs is a severe no-no, okay? It's a very, very huge moral no-no. Hell, even smoking a joint in Japan is considered a bad time. Now, he was removed entirely from the game, like everything was gone. He basically had his whole facial scans gone, everything was removed. And he was replaced with Kyohei Hamura, right? Sorry if I get the name butchered wrong over here. And mind you, he was a very important aspect of the game. This is actually the complete facial, this is what his character would have been in the original Judgment. So apparently the cops searched his car and his home, and they found no cocaine at his home, but I think he actually did have some level. He admitted basically to using small amounts of cocaine, and obviously it showed up in his urine during a drug test. Now, what about Teruyuki Kagawa, okay? Why is this guy persecuted? Well, to give you a good idea about it, ladies and gentlemen, Teruyuki Kagawa actually apologizes, kind of in a non-apology way, about actions in a hostess club that had happened back in 2022. Now, Kagawa ends up making the rounds here because his story is a little bit different, right? He apologized back in 2022 because of a report that surfaced of him groping a hostess's breasts all the way back in 2019. Now, this is a very, 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 very graphic situation. There are actually photos that I've seen of this, and I do want to blur this out from the video, because it's shocking to read this kind of stuff, but it's also shocking to visually see this kind of stuff happen. So again, to give you an idea, you know, there was a lot of statements and discussions made, but to read what had happened, the allegation here, and what they had brought up, was that apparently he had groped a hostess's breast in a club, I believe, in the Minato ward of Roppongi. And over here, he took off her bra and passed it around to his colleagues in 2019. Now, there's a really good write-up of this from the page unseenjapan.com. And again, we can read through some of it over here. Now, Kagawa is a very popular kabuki actor, and I believe he also showed up on like a children's television show. So just imagine the guy you saw as a kid is grown up just, you know, grabbing and groping women like no tomorrow. So over here, basically what he had kind of brought up was that apparently he was banned from every club throughout the Minato Ward. So they kind of knew how bad this guy was. They accepted him in Ginja knowing this. Yeah, that's been the subject of fierce rumor. I've heard various people that he's got a bad drinking habit. So, according to the author, Minato in particular, Roppongi, is home to a number of high-scale cabaret clubs. According to the scuttlebutt, Kagawa was persona non grata in basically all of them. Like, just imagine how bad of a person you have to be to effectively be, like, a known quantity through the entire ward. The entire red light district, by the way, or at least one of the biggest red light districts in Tokyo. So the author here says all of this is true, as so happens with the rich and famous. People overlooked Kagawa's behavior for years. The Ginza clubs that admitted Kagawa as a customer, the journalists that knew about his behavior remained quiet. The industry people looked the other way, all contributed to this tragic sequence of events. So again, to go further into it as well too, one person on the Yakuza Games subreddit posted this from the Daily Shincho. So for instance, I worked in Ginja for 15 years, but that was the only time my hair, a tool of my trade, had been mangled like that. Now this is obviously the statements of an individual that was allegedly hurt, obviously by Kagawa, somebody that was sexually assaulted in this situation. I don't want to just use the term SA. I find that to be so infantilizing of such a serious situation. He grabbed my hair and started pulling out hairpins one by one, yanking out the hair that had been set and secured in place. I had no choice but to endure the pain and humiliation. I didn't want to resist and risk him flying into a rage or have him target a different hostess. The proof is a photo showing Kagawa grinning with satisfaction as he grabs her hair. Newly obtained images reveal Kagawa having grabbed the former mama's hair, burying his face in the nape of her neck and sniffing it. Furthermore, when she turned to reprimand him, he wore a sullen expression and proceeded to stick his fingers under her armpit to sniff its scent. I mean, really deplorable behavior, right? And the thing is, honestly, like, there is a difference. For instance, from my understanding, he wasn't really charged with any crime. And I believe, like, civil situations kind of, like, all settled out of, like, Japanese courts. So it wasn't a similar situation to Pierre Taki, who was actually, like, arrested by Japanese law enforcement, and, it became a huge deal. Like, Pierre Taki was removed from the industry, and it wasn't just Sega kind of, like, removing him from the game. I believe his agency even jumped in and basically, like, unpersoned him effectively from the industry. So that's a huge deal, right? Now, ultimately, for them to cast not Pierre Taki, but again, to cast Kagawa after this happened in 2019, allegedly, of course, and, later on it got resurfaced in 2022, what the fuck were you thinking, okay? It basically sends the message that, at least to Sega, drugs, they're bad. Forcibly undressing people? That's fucking cool, bro. That's fine. Who cares? Obviously, the community is pretty upset about it. And, for a game like Yakuza, where if they wanted to cast him, literally playing this demo, there is a rapist character. Honestly, if they casted him as that guy, it would have been one of the most base things that any company can do. But they didn't do it, all right? In fact, they let this guy basically grab a paycheck, and, much to the dismay of, I think, mostly English gamers. I can't really get a grasp on how Japanese gamers feel because, obviously, the whole language barrier. But yeah, it's not a good look, okay? It's not good at all. The controversy is fucking gross. And, honestly, like, it makes kind of, like, not, or like, boycotting this game that much more easier, simply because, like, the actual game isn't that great. Yakuza Kiwami 3 is basically a $79 experience that basically includes, like, most of the original game, obviously, and this Dark Ties extra game with the antagonist, like, Yoshitake Mine, who, again, if you were interested in it, sure. But again, if you want to get this game and you want to, like, hang on to that moral thread of, like, not supporting this behavior, look, pick it up on a sale, or, go to a store and buy it for a console as a used copy so Sega doesn't earn your sale. That's about the best advice that I can kind of give you over here. Other than that, the game is 2 weeks out, so obviously Sega is not going to be removing this character and recasting it entirely. That just ain't going to happen. basically it's been casted, it's been done, Sega has ignored the controversy, and I'm pretty sure that even with all of the boycotts and backlashes, this game will probably still sell reasonably well for a Yakuza game. Now, the reason why I also kind of dislike this as well too is because of this $80 experience coming out, Yakuza 3, which is still easily playable in today's day and age, is available for $20 American or $30 Canadian, and they're about to delist this game, which you can buy right now. So if you don't want to support, like the new remake of the game with, I guess, this sexual assaulter allegedly in the game as well, you can at least pick up Yakuza Remastered 3, Yakuza 3 Remastered, which still looks good in my opinion, okay? I mean, yeah, it looks like a PS3 game, but so does the fucking remake in a lot of ways. You might as well get this if you're truly interested. Me, I don't really have a reason to get Yakuza Kiwami 3, mostly because I don't particularly enjoy the gameplay of 3 all that much anyways. And from what I've been playing in the demo, it seems as if the gameplay is pretty much par for the course there. The fighting is whatever. It's kind of gimmicky, but it is what it is. For the most part, the game just doesn't look like it's valued at $79. And again, I'm also the guy that still hasn't finished the pirate game they released, like, I want to say like a year ago. So I still got Yakuza stuff to play. Honestly, I feel like it's probably a good example of the yearly release coming in. There have been so many Yakuza games that have like an MCU level intro now. So when you get to that point in your game franchise, you've made too many fucking games. Ultimately, maybe they should kind of like hold back, figure out their casting decisions again, and ultimately kind of get their shit together a little bit, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like Yakuza games, they're kind of like, it's a great franchise, but when the L's hit, they hit pretty damn hard. So yeah, honestly, I wanted to kind of yap about this. I'm very disappointed in Sega for this kind of behavior. Not just, the Kagawa, I mean, that's really bad itself, but just the general quality of this Yakuza game just doesn't hit, man. Like, it really doesn't. To be real with you, it doesn't hit, and what pisses me off is game companies just delist their older shit, because you can get it a lot cheaper for no good reason. I mean, if you cared about Yakuza 3, if you really wanted to enjoy this game, I'd just say between the remake and the $20 remaster that exists, you should just buy the $20 remaster. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.